25 economics concepts that explain how the world really works. Why does everything seem to get more expensive every year? Why does some products suddenly vanish from the shelves? How can one coffee shop charge $5 while the one next door gets away with charging 10? The answer isn't random. It's economics. These aren't just dry academic theories. They are the invisible forces that shape our daily lives. Once you understand these core ideas, you'll start seeing them everywhere, from the price of gas to the housing market to your own career choices. Let's pull back the curtain on 6 of the most important concepts. First, the big one, supply and demand. Remember early 2020? Why did a bottle of hand sanitizer suddenly cost 10 times more? It's simple. Demand exploded. Everyone wanted it, right? But the supply, the number of bottles being made, couldn't keep up. Whenever more people want something than businesses can produce, prices almost always rise. The opposite is also true. Almost every price tag you see is the result of this constant dance. But what about when everything seems to get more expensive, slowly, all at once? If you've noticed your grocery bill creeping up, you've met inflation. Inflation means your money's power to buy things is slowly weakening. $100 in your pocket today simply buys less than it did 10 years ago. It's a silent erosion of value, and it's why just stuffing cash under the mattress isn't a winning long-term strategy. This brings us to a foundational truth of economics: scarcity. Why are diamonds so expensive while water, something we need to survive, is usually cheap? Scarcity. Economics begins with a simple, hard truth. Our resources are limited. There isn't an infinite supply of anything. This basic fact forces us, from giant corporations to individuals, to make choices about how to use what we have, and every single choice involves a trade-off. That trade-off has a name: opportunity cost. Every decision you make costs something, even when no money changes hands. Let's say you spend your Saturday binge-watching a new series. You can't spend that same time learning a new language or starting a side hustle. The value of that next best thing you gave up, that is the opportunity cost. It's the ghost of the road not taken, present in every choice we make. Now let's talk about pizza. Why is that first slice absolutely incredible, but by the 5th you're kind of over it? That's the law of diminishing marginal utility. It's a fancy term for a very human idea. Each additional unit of something usually gives you a little less satisfaction than the one before it. The joy, the utility, fades with quantity. Businesses understand this deeply when they price their products. Finally, let's look at the engine that drives all of this: incentives. People respond to incentives, full stop. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO, an employee, a consumer, or a government. If you change the incentive, a tax break, a store sale, a year-end bonus, you will almost certainly change behavior. Incentives are the invisible nudges and shoves that shape nearly every decision made in our economy. So, supply and demand, inflation, scarcity, opportunity cost, marginal utility, and incentives. They aren't just words in a textbook. They are a code, a set of rules that explain the world of money, work, and value all around us. They explain why some industries boom while others bust. The next time you walk into a store or wonder why your rent is so high, remember this: it isn't random. It's economics, happening right in front of you.
Next, let's look at economies of scale. Have you ever walked past a small local shop on your way into a giant Walmart and wondered how the prices could be so different? Walmart can buy 1,000,000 of something, so they get a massive discount. They can build a single colossal distribution center to serve hundreds of stores. That massive scale drives down the cost of every single item on the shelf. In many ways, bigger businesses become more efficient just by virtue of being bigger. But what happens when a company gets so big it has almost no competition left? That's when we get a monopoly. And when one company holds all the cards, the game changes for us. Prices often start to creep up. Why wouldn't they? If you need what they're selling, you have nowhere else to go. Innovation slows to a crawl. Without rivals nipping at their heels, there's little reason to spend money developing the next great thing. Our choices shrink. Healthy competition is what keeps a market vibrant. It forces everyone to be better. Think about the gas station on the corner. When the price of gas shoots up, it's painful, but most of us still fill up the tank. We have to get to work, pick up the kids. Our demand for gas isn't very elastic. That's an economic way of saying we'll buy it within reason no matter the price. It's an essential. But what about a luxury watch or a fancy dinner out? If those prices rise, we stop buying almost immediately. Our demand is elastic. We can live without it. This simple concept of elasticity explains so much about our own spending habits. It also helps explain how companies compete. They don't succeed by doing everything. They succeed by doing one thing exceptionally well. They specialize. This is their competitive advantage. Countries do it too. Germany is known for its world-class engineering in cars. Switzerland for its precision watches and pharmaceuticals. Companies are the same. Some compete on being the absolute cheapest. Others, like Apple, compete on design, brand, and creating a seamless user experience. They found what they are relatively best at, and they focus all their energy there. That focus creates an efficiency and value that's hard for others to match. This constant push and pull, companies competing, us deciding what to buy, seems like a self-contained system, but it's not. There are hidden costs. Imagine a factory on the edge of town. It makes products we buy, creating jobs and value, but it also releases pollution into the air and water. That pollution affects the health of people who live nearby, people who may never have even bought the factory's product. That hidden cost is called an externality. It's a consequence of a transaction that impacts a third party. Some costs, and sometimes benefits, extend far beyond the simple exchange between a buyer and a seller. All these forces, scale, competition, choice, and hidden costs are constantly at work. They shape the prices we pay, the products we see on the shelves, and the world we live in. They explain why some businesses thrive while others fail, and why the market behaves the way it does. It's a complex dance, but once you start to see the steps, you realize it's happening all around you every single day.
It starts simply. Money earning money. Then that money you just earned starts earning its own money, again and again. It's called compound interest, and it's a force of nature. A small snowball of savings rolling downhill, growing bigger and faster with nothing but time. It's perhaps the single most powerful tool you have for building wealth, working silently in the background of your life. But your snowball doesn't roll in a vacuum. It rolls through a landscape shaped by interest rates. Think of interest rates as the financial weather. They affect almost everything: the cost of your mortgage, the debt on your credit card, the loans a business needs to grow, even the prices of stocks. When the news says rates are rising, it means the cost of borrowing money is going up everywhere. The weather is getting colder, and everything slows down. This entire system of borrowing and lending is powered by a concept that might surprise you. When you deposit $1,000 in the bank, it doesn't just sit in a vault. The bank is required to keep only a fraction of it, say $100. The other $900, it gets loaned out. That borrower might use it to buy something, and the seller then deposits that $900 in their bank. That second bank then keeps a piece, $90, and loans out $810. This cycle repeats, and it's called fractional reserve banking. It's how an initial $1,000 deposit can ripple through the economy, ultimately creating up to $10,000 in new credit. It's how banks multiply money. That credit is a double-edged sword. It lets us spend future income today. Used wisely, it's the leverage that builds wealth, a mortgage for a home, a loan for a business. But used poorly, it's a trap that creates a mountain of debt. It's the difference between a tool and a weapon, and the outcome depends entirely on who is wielding it. And what about the money you aren't borrowing, the money you actually have? Its power is measured by its liquidity. Cash is king because it's perfectly liquid. You can use it instantly. Your house, on the other hand, isn't. You can't pay for groceries with a brick from your wall.
Liquidity is simply a measure of how quickly you can turn something you own into cash without losing its value. When you decide to put that cash to work through investing, you'll face the fundamental law of finance: risk versus return. The higher the potential return, the greater the risk you must accept. There is no free lunch. If someone promises you massive, guaranteed returns with zero risk, you should be more than skeptical. You should be suspicious. Every investment exists somewhere on this spectrum, and your job is to decide where you're comfortable standing. So how do you manage that risk? Diversification. Putting all your money into one company's stock is a gamble. It could create a massive gain, or it could lead to a catastrophic loss. Diversification is the opposite of that gamble. It's the simple idea of not putting all your eggs in one basket. By spreading your investments across many different assets, industries, and even countries, you reduce the chance that a single failure can wipe you out. It smooths out the ride. These concepts, from compounding to diversification, are not just textbook terms. They're the invisible rules governing the flow of money in the world and in your wallet. Understanding them is the first step toward moving from a passenger in your financial life to the one in the driver's seat.
We often think of wealth as something complex, maybe even mysterious, but the principles that create it are surprisingly straightforward. It all begins with one core idea: productivity. Wealth isn't just about having money, it's about creating value. The more value we can produce, whether as an individual or as an entire economy, the wealthier we become. Think of a baker who figures out how to bake twice as many loaves of bread in the same amount of time. They've become more productive, they've created more value, and from that, more wealth. So, how do we become more productive? That leads to our next two concepts, which are really two sides of the same coin. First, there's human capital. This is simply the stuff in your head, your skills, your knowledge, your experience. Every new skill you learn, coding, public speaking, welding, is an investment in yourself. It's capital, just as much as a machine is. And over a lifetime, those investments compound, increasing your potential to create value and to earn. The other side of the coin is physical capital. These are the tools of the trade: the machines, the factories, the software on your laptop, the delivery truck. Capital is a force multiplier. It allows one person to do the work of 10 or even 100. A skilled carpenter is valuable, but a skilled carpenter with a workshop full of power tools can build things faster, better, and on a scale they could never achieve by hand. So productivity, fueled by human skills and the right tools, that's the engine of wealth. Now, let's zoom out. How does this work on a global scale? That's where comparative advantage comes in. It's a powerful idea that says countries don't need to be the best at everything. They just need to focus on what they do relatively well. Imagine two countries. Country A can produce both wine and cheese more efficiently than Country B. But Country A is spectacularly good at making wine, while only slightly better at making cheese. It actually makes more sense for Country A to pour all its energy into making wine and trade for cheese from Country B. By specializing in trading, both countries end up with more wine and more cheese than if they tried to do it all themselves. It's the logic that underpins our entire global economy. Of course, this growth doesn't happen in a straight line. The economy has a rhythm. It expands, then it slows, then it recovers. These are economic cycles. Booms and recessions can feel chaotic, even scary, but they're a normal, expected part of the long-term journey of growth. Understanding this rhythm helps us see the bigger picture, to not panic during the downturns, and to not get too carried away in the booms. This brings us to the final and perhaps most powerful concept, the one thing that connects almost every great business, every great fortune, and every great investor, and that is time. Time is the invisible, essential ingredient. It's the soil in which everything else grows. Time allows businesses to find their footing and expand. It allows your investments to compound, turning small sums into significant wealth. It allows your skills, your human capital, to deepen into true mastery. We live in a world that constantly sells shortcuts. Get rich quick,
master a new career in a week. But economics teaches a more profound truth. The greatest advantages don't come from speed, they come from patience. Understanding this isn't just about passing a class, it's about understanding the fundamental mechanics of how value and wealth are truly built in the world. Before you go, let's quickly recap the 25 economics concepts we covered today. Supply and demand, inflation, scarcity, opportunity cost, marginal utility, incentives, economies of scale, monopoly, price elasticity, competitive advantage, externalities, market competition, compound interest, interest rates, fractional reserve banking, credit, liquidity, risk versus return, diversification, productivity, human capital, capital, comparative advantage, economic cycles, time. The more you understand these ideas, the better equipped you'll be to make smarter financial decisions for the rest of your life. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to the Wealth Blueprint. We break down money, investing, business, and economics into simple concepts that anyone can understand.